Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 13, Episode 42. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Glad you guys are back with us for this Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on when you're listening to this, a bit earlier edition of the Wednesday podcast, because, Dave, Tuesday was the NFL trade deadline, and it was as busy as ever, and I mean that literally. While it is the Steelers' bye week, it is also the bye-bye week for wide receiver Chase Claypool, as he has been sent to the Chicago Bears. Pittsburgh buying and selling at the trade deadline, acquiring cornerback William Jackson III from the Washington Commanders. And so Claypool out, Jackson in, and a whole lot for us to talk about.
Yeah, just when the spaghetti was coming out of the pot.
Always happens. I think Omar intentionally planned that.
Yeah, it's like they have cameras on us to know when we're trying to get a break. But I mean, look, and as you stated, I mean, not only busy day for the Steelers, but around the league. And I think it's what was a record number of trades, right, for a trade deadline and all like that. And for the Steelers to be buyers and not only buyers but sellers on the same day at a trade deadline is quite monumental in and of itself. I don't think you can ever remember. I don't know how far you have to go back, way probably before I was born, to find an instance of that. But to recap, in case you've been away or just this is your only means of information. As Alex said, the Steelers traded Chase Claypool to the Chicago Bears for their original 2023 second-round draft pick. I think it was first reported that it was maybe the second-round pick that they had got from the Baltimore Ravens in exchange for Roquan Smith on Monday. But it is the Bears' original second-round pick in 2023. So now you have a reason to root against the Bears the rest of the way here. And as Alex mentioned, they acquired cornerback William Jackson III, a name that's should be familiar to Steelers fans. And they got him in a conditional 2025 seventh-round draft pick for a conditional 2025 sixth-round draft pick. And what that screams right there is, hey, take the rest of this salary that we owe him for 2022 off our hands, will you?
And Pittsburgh did. And as you mentioned, Jackson, a name that has long been in, I guess, Steelers lore, so to speak, famously, infamously, however you want to, phrase it. Supposed to be a Steeler way back in, was that 2016? 2016. Yeah. God, where does the time go?
I know. And he's 30 already, too.
I know. How old are all of us right now? And so he was the guy Pittsburgh was going to take with that first-round pick back in 2016, and then one pick ahead, the Bengals stole him away, and that led Pittsburgh to draft Artie Burns, and draft Artie Burns, and the rest is history. So that old index card Kevin Colbert had gets one last crack at it with William Jackson. So again, Pittsburgh, the continuity they have makes them a rare organization to circle back to these guys. The connections there were pretty clear. So while I don't necessarily love the move, we'll talk about that. I understand it, and it certainly cost his team very little to acquire him.
Yes, and in fact, I have a very detailed post that I just posted right before we came on SteelersDepot.com, deep diving into the salary cap impact, contract details, and really the financials related to these two Tuesday deals here, and essentially what the Bears or what the Commanders had left to pay. Because remember, folks, William Jackson the third went into this year scheduled to earn a base salary of $5 million. Well, that gets divided up into, the Commanders have already had him for 8 weeks now. So they have to take what they've paid him already off the top there. That stays with them on their cap. And then whatever's left prorated out is what the Steelers assume on that contract. And I think with base salary, the prorated portion of that $5 million, along with he's got per game roster bonuses, a max of $750,000 in total for 2022. Now he's already been inactive like 4 games or something, I think, this season. And I think kind of if he maxes out and stays healthy and is active for the remainder of the season, we're looking at William Jackson III being essentially a half a year rental for right around $3.1 million total there. So that's how much it cost them to rent this guy for the rest of the year. And it's really, as I described in my post, Alex, it's a rent with an option to buy. Can I interest you in can I put you into this William Jackson III for 2023?
A little older, a little broken down, but yeah, I'm listening.
It's got some mileage on it, Alex, but and it's got some, it's got some dents on it and all like that. But Alex, this William Jackson III model was made for you.
The third edition, right? I heard.
Yeah, it is the third edition. Look, and the reason I say it's kind of a rent with an option to buy is he is under contract for the 2023 season. It's a base salary of $9.25 million. He's got a roster bonus that's due in March of $2.5 million. He also has an off-season workout bonus next year for $250,000. And then there's another max of $750,000 in per game roster bonuses. Now, because he's not going to play in all the games this year, that'll be adjusted down to, a not likely to be earned aspect of it. But let's just take everything as face value, him supposedly earning everything in 2023. A cap charge of 12.75 is kind of the max situation there, if you will, on that. But once again, I don't think I'm positive his 2023 salary is not fully guaranteed. So, but they're going to have to make a decision in March on that $2.5 million roster bonus. If he plays well the rest of 2022, it would be a no-brainer for them. They would just go ahead and keep him at that. In fact, they might, depending on how well he plays, they might say, hey, before we pay you this roster bonus in May, maybe we can work out let's say a 2-year extension with you. And, that in turn would help probably lower his 2023 cap charge some. But the option, consider it an option to buy in March there. And that gives William Jackson all the incentive in the world, because look, he was hours away from getting cut. You know?
That was the thought. They were trying to trade him, couldn't find anybody, and they were supposedly about to release him.
And if that had happened, it'd probably been hard pressed maybe for him to get $9 million for next season. I don't know. There's always, all it takes is one team there, but he's got a lot of incentive right now to play well the rest of the season and get himself in a position where he can, obviously earn, $12 million, next year there. So if he bombs out, if he doesn't play well the rest of this season, then the Steelers can simply cut him before paying him that March roster bonus. And all they have invested in him at that point would be, the 3.1 whatever million this year, and that late 2025, 6-round pick that they traded away.
Right, which is essentially nothing with the pick swap and it being 3 years from now. Give me the lowdown on the Claypool details. Obviously less money there, but what's the situation on that?
Yeah, there's dead money. First and foremost, there is dead money involved from the prorated signing bonus of his rookie deal of $593,000, just a smidge more than $593,000 for this year, and another dead money charge in 2023 of the same amount, a little hair more than $593,000 there. So that's the dead money involved. But he was owed a little over $673,000 for the remainder of this season, and that's the prorated amount, and that goes off the Steelers' books and onto the Bears' books at this time. So you can essentially look at it because you're going to pay that prorated portion this year anyway, to $500, because that's prorated. That wasn't going to go anywhere anyway. So you can look at it as a savings of almost $675,000 this year, but you do have that additional nearly $600,000 in dead money in 2023, which really, that's really insignificant. Now, here's the thing where it comes to that you probably won't hear a lot of people talk about unless they read it on our site or listen to us. Claypool had already qualified for a level 1 proven performance escalator raise in 2023. I wrote about that ahead of the start of the season. I think it was him, Claypool, and Kevin Dotson and Alex Highsmith that were kind of in line for proven performance escalator raises in 2023. Claypool had already done enough even ahead of the season to have a level 1 PPE raise, and he's well on his way to playing enough snaps to get a level 2 portion. But even let's take it at assuming he only stated that level 1 proven performance escalator raise, he was already looking at getting a raise in 2023 up to somewhere around $3.7 million, and now that's on the Bears' books now. They're the ones that have to worry about that. So you essentially carved off at a minimum $3.7 million off of your cap number in 2023 by dealing them away, because you no longer have to pay him that money. That's the Bears' worry right now there. So that won't get talked about. But when you talk about a player that, we all know that even if he didn't get traded, he wasn't going to get an extension next offseason there.
Right.
He was already going to probably be that fourth wheel, third and a half or fourth wheel kind of player for you anyway. And then, earning, close to, right around $3.7 million there. So not only that, you get a second. Are you kidding me? I had to look at that thing 8 times when it bounced up on Twitter there, because I think I even said in the last podcast there with you, I said I'm resigned to the fact if I got a fourth for him, I'd deal him. And the fact that they got a second from the Bears, are you kidding me? There's no way you can turn that down. I think we both agree on that there. So, looking at both these deals on paper right now, you've already mentioned to me that you're not a huge fan of the Jackson end of it, but looking at it on paper, the financials, the risk, all like that, what they got in return in the second round pick, you tell me why you're obviously on board with the Claypool pick, or trade.
Sure.
What is there about the Jackson deal that you don't like?
Well, I want to talk about the Claypool first because I think that's the most impactful thing. And as you said, I can't believe the value they got for this guy. And there's a report out there right now, maybe we'll write about a little bit later on Tuesday evening, that the Packers were also offering a second round pick. And so the Bears upped their ante to a second, and Pittsburgh chose the Bears deal because they felt like Chicago would have a higher pick in this year's draft. And so that's something to note as well. To get a second round pick for a guy who was a second round pick back in 2020 that's coming off of 2 underwhelming years last year and what he's been through this season, I don't know what other teams necessarily see in the guy. I understand the talent and the upside and the potential, but a lot of that's been just that unrealized potential. So I love this deal. I talked about over the last couple of weeks that I felt like I was ready to move on from Chase Claypool, didn't see how he fit in this offense, how he would win in this offense. Not an outside guy, not a vertical Z receiver, not really a natural, comfortable guy in the slot either. So I would be looking to kind of get whatever I could get for him. And Pittsburgh's getting tremendous value for Chase Claypool. So I love this deal every which way. The idea to deal him, I get that. I endorse that. And then to get what they got for him, as you said, Dave, that's straight stealing, and I am blown away by it.
What did you think? I don't know how much of the Ryan Poles press conference you watched. Is not very long. I went through it. He didn't look comfortable up there today. Of course, having to talk about Roquan Smith and how all that didn't work out, and how they had to essentially, the best interest to trade him, and then talk to obviously about the Claypool deal and all like that. He literally, if you, I invite anybody to go to the Chicago Bears YouTube page, and you can watch that. Once again, it's not very long. He comes off like he got robbed.
Well, I did listen to the whole thing. I don't know what his general vibe is, so I don't know how different that is. I mean, sure, it's an awkward situation, a lot to talk about. They just traded Quinn and they trade Roquan Smith, and so there's a lot of moving and shaking happening. But, I mean, to me, Pittsburgh won this deal. And Claypool, maybe he can be more of a focus and central point of that Bears offense. I think he will be more than what he was in Pittsburgh, but second-round pick for Claypool, who was not as impactful last year as he was, of course, his rookie season. And, I think really just kind of a football nomad in the sense of didn't have a home and where he fit in this offense, to get him for a second-round pick. And it'll be a high second-round pick in all probability as well, top 40-ish type pick, maybe top 45. I mean, that is a tremendous deal in value for the Steelers.
Yeah. And look, we don't wish that kid certainly well, and
sure.
Hopefully
Absolutely.
He goes on to have a great career and all like that. Maybe a change of venues and offense and schematics might help him some, but I don't know where we're missing we're missing on him, because we've talked about this quite a bit over the years there, and for a while now I've said that this is not a guy that can stack consistent vertically as a Z receiver that you would like, long strider type that just busts the top off of coverages. He's not that guy. And now that we've gotten kind of a year and a half away from the combative catch aspect of his game, which that really was the drawn pass interference penalties that he had there for a while was a very appetizing thing. But he's just an average kind of player now, I think, and he's a player with that looking for a position and question on how to be used. You move him into the slot this year. Very moderate successes in there. They don't run a lot of slants, obviously, and don't use it. Maybe that's one way the Bears maybe start using them in the slot and run slants and slot fades out of them, because I think those are about the two things that maybe the Steelers didn't do enough of, that maybe he can excel in the Bears offense. He wasn't much of a blocker, right?
Right. Yeah, Ryan Poles said that, and I was like, we watching the same Chase Claypool?
Yeah. In fact, this is what, for those just joining us, this is what he said. I thought it was important to add another impact player to our offense to go along with the guys that we currently have in the receiver room right now. He says, I like the way Justin is trending, that meaning Justin Fields is trending, and I think adding another big body who's physical, explosive, great leaping ability, can stretch the field, but also is violent with the ball in his hand, as well as a blocker. I think that enhances everyone around him. I don't know what tape they got hold of.
I mean, Claypool can be that guy, but how often is he that guy?
Right. I mean,
you see the flashes. He's made plays, but the consistency has always been the question mark.
Well, look at the tough yards that he got in that game against the Eagles after the catch.
Right.
But where else has that been on his tape throughout the years?
It's not often enough. And I get it's been a bad offense. It's hard for any of these guys to thrive. But again, I go back to the most fundamental questions of all when you're evaluating a player on your roster, in your offense or defense for that matter. How does he win? How does he fit within your scheme? And I can't come up with good, solid, confident answers to either of those questions with Chase Claypool. Ergo, move him. Maybe he'll fit better somewhere else. Maybe not. Doesn't matter. Get good value for him. Pittsburgh did.
To me, he's a 35 to 40 player, big slot guy. Sure.
I mean, I asked the question last week, whenever it was, where would you rank this guy in terms of the top receivers in football? And I said, is he top 50 guy? And I know I'm asking a really big, broad question. I don't have a concrete answer to that, but he's closer to 50 than he is, say, 25. I'll tell you that much. And to spend a second round pick. And I get he's under contract for next year, but Chicago, I know they can try to position themselves for a playoff push, but they're not going anywhere this year. So it's really, to me, it's a year and a half. But in terms of, in theory, competing, it's really a 1 year thing. It's 2023. And for a second round pick for that, to me, that is just too steep of a price to pay. But hey, I'm glad they paid it.
Yeah, and I'm shocked they paid it. I am stunned.
But apparently that was the price. The Packers are offering a second. I can't believe that. I'm trying to figure out what the league is seeing in this guy. It's the potential, I guess, but I didn't see second round value for him. So I will leak crow. I did not think Pittsburgh was going to get, I thought a fourth at best they would get for him. So I was dead wrong on that.
I didn't think they'd get it either. Yeah, there's no way you can convince me they would have got that. Now we'll either be vindicated or eat more crow if he goes on this next, rest of the season and then next year and turns into a 80 catch, 90 catch, a guy that produces explosive plays and that kind of thing. Here's the thing too. I mean, his situation is not changing over there in Chicago as far as his contract goes, because come next offseason, he's going to be saying, hey, am I going to get paid or not? And
he's going to have leverage. You just gave up a second for that guy. You're going to let him walk after next year? Really? For a new GM? I don't know about that.
And Poles essentially said, too, he was asked the question.
Yep. About the receiver class next year.
The free agent class. Mm-hmm. He says, with the 2023 wide receiver free agent classes coming up, I mean, a lot of those guys have already signed their deals. This is a reporter asking us, did that play into just how bleak that group is, play into wanting to get Justin Fields more help now instead of just having relied on maybe the draft next year for that? And Ryan said, yeah, and that's part of my job. And that's part of, my crew upstairs is you have to do a little bit of forecasting and looking down the road. And I just didn't feel completely comfortable with that. Not to say there's not good players there. I just didn't feel comfortable with not maybe being a little more aggressive at this point. So this is a dart throw that he's getting out in front of next year's free agency, and this is his free agency prize at the wide receiver position, I guess.
And it feels like that's creating a bit of an overpay where you feel like there's nobody out there to sign next year and it's hard to project the draft. And so we're going to go trade for this guy because we don't know what other options there are. So again, the deal's done. And listen, I don't mean to hedge and potentially backpedal. Maybe he's just a better fit in Chicago. Maybe they use him more effectively. I think he will be, again, more of that focal point in that pass game. There aren't a lot of other options for Justin Fields, but in Pittsburgh, it was not working. It was not fitting. Good on Pittsburgh to admit that, to move on and get a really valuable draft pick for him.
Right.
So moving on, one last thing I want to note here from Josina Anderson's been tweeting about this deal throughout the day. And I believe she's the only one saying this, but I do want to put it out there. I'm just going to read a couple of the tweets that she had this afternoon. She says, quote, "From what I am hearing and been hearing over the last week, the Steelers moved on from what they felt like was somewhat of a distraction behind the scenes. I'm told the Claypool move has been on the table for at least 2 weeks. There was a lot of chatter on the Steelers potentially trading Chase Claypool leading into today, as this move was authorized weeks ago, and the internal impression is that Claypool felt he's a number one talent, while the Steelers feel ready to give rookie George Pickens an expanded role." And so take that for whatever it's worth. But that is what Josina Anderson is reporting.
Yeah, we obviously don't know. I'll tell you this: there's been a lot of chatter out of that locker room in general.
Right.
And we don't know for sure. Was he the one maybe that causing some unrest in there? There's already enough to be unrest about anyway. Mm-hmm. But and we don't know whether or not that's true. But she sure made sure to put it out there. So, and look, I've followed Josina for years, going all the way back to her days in Denver on the local station, covering. She's pretty good at keeping her ear to the things. And I don't think there's been many times where she's kind of just threw stuff out there for the clickbait, kind of aspect of it there. So we don't know. We'll see, but it's not the Steelers' problem anymore.
I mean, Claypool certainly always felt like somebody who had, really confident in himself. And that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. I mean, he had the comments about him, I feel like I could potentially be a top 3, top 5 type receiver. So I'm sure he probably didn't love the role he was in, being pushed to the slot, something that's not comfortable for him, something new for him. So again, I just think overall not a great fit for Pittsburgh, and to get anything out of him, I thought was a good move, but to get a second round pick is that much better.
Right.
So looking at the rest of the year in 2022, I will say this hurts Pittsburgh to some degree in the short term. Obviously, trading away a piece, a weapon, a starting player on your offense for an offense that's already pretty poor. So Claypool goes out. Who could potentially replace him? I doubt it'll be just one singular guy. I think the top names internally to replace him include Steven Sims, Gunnar Olszewski, and maybe they get a little creative with, I don't know, Connor Hayward, or run more 12 personnel with Zach Gentry and Pat Frymuth. But I think to start, you get a long look at Steven Sims. His work in the receiver run game flashed a little bit of that against the Eagles. His ability to create yak, to make plays in space, some of the RPO game, if they can lean on that a bit more, I think that could help this team. So I think Gunnar will also have some sort of role as well, but I think Steven Sims could be the guy that benefits the most from this trade.
Yeah, that will be interesting to see in and of itself, right? But I mean, if there was one guy going back to his time in Washington, he did have a little bit of experience in there as far as the slot goes. So, I mean, you combine all the catches those guys have, though, at the bottom there, it's like, what, 3 for 10 yards or something like that?
A number that will go up, though, for sure.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And, now would certainly be a nice time to have Calvin Austin the third to slide into that role, but he's obviously on IR. And we got a little bit of update on that today, too, didn't we?
We did. Calvin Austin posting on Instagram a photo of him in the hospital, either right before or right after his surgery. It looks like the left foot for Calvin Austin. Still don't know what the exact nature of that foot injury is, but that was reported after he was kept on IR. His window expired, that he had aggravated that foot injury working back from it initially that he suffered back in the summer. And so it's not breaking news, but confirmation have overall. We know it's the left foot, and he'll try to get healthy for OTAs in 2023.
Right. And might they use more 2 tight ends going forward here to try to help maybe the running game?
Potentially. I mean, game circumstance dictates some of that. If you're down, 35-13, the way Pittsburgh's been, then you're going to be in a lot of 11 personnel. So I think they're going to try to go a bit heavier and try to, again, I think replacing Claypool, not that he's irreplaceable, but just to replace a starting guy in an offense, it's not very good. It'll be more than just one guy. I think you'll see Sims, I think Olszewski, and then you try to get creative with some extra bigs and Gentry and maybe Connor Hayward as well.
Right. Be interested. They'll probably rotate through, like you said there with Gunnar and Sims, more specifically, kind of in that role. But at least Sims does have a little bit of experience during his time with Washington in that.
And they were getting Sims, and maybe this was some tea leaves to look back on. He was playing more on offense against Philadelphia. He had 11 snaps. That was a season high, 14% of the offense, had 3 targets and 2 carries. And so if we kind of connect what Josina Anderson was saying about this deal has kind of been in the works, there's been some talks for 2 weeks. I think Pittsburgh maybe went into that game saying, hey, let's try to get a preview of how Steven Sims could be used. And if we do trade Chase Claypool, and that may have been the case.
Yeah, but I mean, once again, if you don't use him in the slants and you don't use him, slot fade, they're going to have to start using that position a little different.
Sure. I mean, Claypool to Sims, the body type is different, but hopefully that could encourage this team to use the middle of the field, because that's where Sims is as a space player. He's not somebody that's going to be the slot fade and that big physical presence, but get him on the move, get him in space, and run kind of a true slot receiver route tree.
Right. I sure would like to see a couple of even if you have to mix George Pickens in there occasionally, a handful of slot snaps in there. I'd be for that as well, too, And they played Deontay Johnson a bit more in the slot in that Eagles game. So, again, there'll be some mixing and matching there. Could a Miles Boykin get some more snaps as well? Don't want to rule that out. So again, the long story short is I think there'll be a lot of different pieces. And also just to learn more about these guys. You want to learn more about Sims and Boykin and Hayward and all those guys, Gunnar, just to see what you have, just to see who works, who fits, and who can help you this year and next year as well. All right. Anything else to add on the Claypool trade here, other than still pretty much in shock that they got a second round pick for him?
Yeah, it's just a really good deal overall.
I would have been shocked that they got a third.
that was kind of my thought. They would get maybe a third or a fourth for him. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a great deal. I tried to be very fair and unbiased about this stuff. If I didn't feel like it was a great deal, I'd tell you. But I think it's an A-plus deal for Omar Khan and Andy Weidel.
Right. And we've talked about, hey, man, this team could certainly use some draft picks,
Absolutely, and that'll help the rebuild. And so looking receiver probably in the draft or for agency. I know Calvin Austin will be back, but I don't know how much you want to, put all your eggs into the Calvin Austin basket right now. But anyway, the Claypool deal done to Chicago for a second-round pick. The other deal that came in shortly after that, Pittsburgh buying as well, getting cornerback William Jackson from the Washington Commanders, as you mentioned earlier, a guy that's been on the trade block, been inactive for part of this season. Washington apparently was going to release him had they been unable to find a trade partner, and then Pittsburgh danced with them late. It'll be a 2025 conditional, 6th-round pick, and then Pittsburgh getting back a 2025 conditional 7th-round pick. So basically getting him for essentially nothing besides the financial salary component to it that you ran through earlier. So what are your thoughts on this deal, Dave?
Once again, it's all going to depend on how he plays. I mean, to me, it's worth the rental price. It's worth the $3 million to kick the tires on this guy for the remaining, 9 games of the season, to see if a change in venue, a change in possibly maybe playing, a little bit more man is up his alley, to see if he's got anything left in here. As I posted in that financials post of mine too, if you want an unusual way to kind of look at this here, look at it like the Steelers taking that money that they would have spent next year on the on the raise for Chase Claypool and spending it this year on William Jackson III on a lease with option to buy, because look, he is older. But look, Joe Hayden, right? I mean, not everything's a James Ferrier, Joe Hayden thing, but you got a former first-round draft pick here, that's seemingly people have given up on. A lot of people wondered, you specifically, I think you were lower on Hayden than I was when he came over. I mean, we were neither one of us were throwing a parade when Joe Hayden was signed, but he gave him a good couple of years there. So I think that their thought is, this is a guy we know. This is a guy we like. He was on the Kevin Colbert list of 25 names of the index card. We can now finally circle back to him. We spent
cross that last one off.
Yeah. We spent time with him at it because Colbert and Tomlin, right, both went to the Houston Pro Day that year.
Yes.
And here they are, a chance to revisit this. And even Terrell Austin, spent the 2018 season as the defensive coordinator in Cincinnati, so he knows a little bit about the kid there. As long as they don't make the wrong decision after this year, look, either he's going to pass the sniff test or he's not. If he doesn't, you just you cut him. But if he shows you what you think he had, that he could possibly play a couple more seasons, then I think you keep him around there. So the only thing that's in play here is what really right now initially is the $3-point-something million.
You're selling me well on the William Jackson model with the math and everything. You got the four square out to me.
Very little tape. We've been so busy this afternoon that I haven't really gone down into his tape. And obviously he was kind of disgruntled. I think they're in Washington. I think I don't know if this back issue that he supposedly has is him just trying to get himself out of town, or we've got to take a deeper dive into him. There's some not so great tape out there from earlier this season, some clips that I've seen on, but I have not deep, and we will within the next 24 hours. By Friday, we'll be able to tell you his blood type on him by then. But on this short of notice, it seems like probably more suited for man type situations than zone. He is big physical kid though, or adult now, obviously. But I'm not ready to talk about what's on tape just yet.
Sure. I mean, it obviously hasn't been going well for him to get to this point, but we don't know exactly the reasons for that. Or Jonathan Heitritter on Wednesday morning will have a deep dive film room. And so that'll be a good place for us and for the listeners to start. I mentioned top of the show, I didn't love this move. And listen, it's impossible to hate this move because of so little being invested in him. It's a 2025 draft pick, late round pick swap. That is nothing compared to what the NFL traditionally deals in. And this is, as you said, basically a 1-year rental with the option to buy if it goes really, really well. So I can't be mad. I can't hate this pick. I just don't like it for a couple of reasons. He's 30 years old, not playing that well. You're 2-6. Why you're acquiring a player? It's not like, unless Levi Wallace is injured severely where he's going to be out, multiple weeks, then you have some options there at corner. And I just think about, is a guy like Jackson going to potentially block a young guy like James Pierre, who I want to see more of? Pierre has played well, honestly replacing Akella Witherspoon has been a big disappointment this season, but I thought Pierre held his own against Philadelphia. That's a guy I want to see more of, learn more about, see if he's a guy for the future or not. And I just think, what is how much money would he be owed next year for Pittsburgh to keep him?
You're looking at a cap charge of around 12.7 something.
I just think, how good does it have to go this year for him to do that, to stay around at $12 million, be far and away your highest paid cornerback at 31 years old? It has to go amazing for that to happen, I think.
Yeah, he's got a lot of incentive too, and it does have to go good. But what is a number one corner earn these days though?
Sure, but he has to play like a shutdown number one corner when he's getting run out of town in Washington right now at 31 years old. So could it happen? Sure. I don't want to say that it can't. He had talent and there was a lot of intrigue in him coming out, but I just think the odds of that happening are pretty low. And so does that potentially take away the chance for a guy like James Pierre to play some? And I'm not saying James Pierre is the savior in the next lockdown corner of the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I do want to see more in his game because I think he's a young guy and you wonder, could he help you out next year? So, and then on top of that, if you're going to pick up, if Jackson's going to be here next year, $12 million, Cam Sutton's a free agent after this year. So can you pay Jackson and pay Cam Sutton? That'll be tough to do. So I just don't know really what the plan is overall, aside from the short-term rental. I don't really know what that does to benefit this 2-16.
And we'll find out. Look, he might bomb, but it's a dart throw. It's a pedigree dart throw that we've seen the Steelers make several times. And that's what it is right now.
Yeah, it's 100% pedigree. Tomlin loves his pedigree. They loved him coming out. Of course, they were going to draft him. So I understand why they're still drawn to William Jackson. But I think putting that aside, putting the resume aside for the here and now, where he's at now, where the Steelers team is at right now, doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I had mentioned that a couple of weeks ago in the podcast when I think Jackson's name was first floated as a potential trade candidate. If this team was competitive, if they had beat the Eagles and were 3-5, all right, I can buy that. Maybe get back into this thing. Jackson can help you, but you're 2-6, your season's over. I just don't necessarily see what is the best case scenario for Jackson. It would be that he plays amazing and is with his team next year, but I think the odds of that happening are pretty low. I think realistically, he's a guy that'll play some snaps, have some good snaps, have some bad snaps, and be playing somewhere else in 2023.
But Alex, I think you got to look at this as this is two different decisions here. Okay. This is a decision for 2022 to other than the fact that you say you want to see more James Pierre. If that's really one of the things that's got this costing Pierre and Wallace playing time, if that's your biggest hang up, then okay, I can kind of see where you come from. But I think that you have to look at this as this is two separate decisions that come with this deal here. First, it's the decision of 2022 to rent this guy to see what he has, plain and simple. Let's face it, this team's not this move's not going to put them over the top and get them into the playoffs. But in the same breath, it might keep you in some game, might help you win some games, maybe. And what if this guy ends up this being the right scenario with him, the right defense and all like that. He plays well. And then comes decision number 2 in March. So
I get that.
I think it needs to be graded for what it is right now. And then it will need to be graded whatever the decision is made with him in March.
I get that. And to be clear, the biggest sticking point I have is the idea of blocking a guy like James Pierre, because how does Pierre
if that's
see
your hang up, I'm okay if that's your hang up.
Because Jackson's going to play. Wallace, whenever he's healthy, is going to play. Of course, Cam Sutton's there. Witherspoon may not. He may get benched, and that's understandable. But and again,
Witherspoon's probably going to be gone after this.
Probably. James Pierre is not going to be the next Ike Taylor, but he has been playing well, has he not? We agree on that.
How much has he played? It's not a large.
In the snaps he's been given, I think he's against Tampa Bay. He was excellent. I thought he did well against Philadelphia on Sunday, and I just want to see more of him because that's a guy that may be here next year and may play impactful snaps. And I want to see, do you have something in that guy or not? If not, then you move on, find somebody else, but you may have something in him. So I just worry about this guy playing a 30-year-old, soon to be 31-year-old cornerback that I don't think will be here next year, potentially blocking an opportunity to learn more, good or bad, about a guy like James Pierre.
Okay. If that's what, if that's what your kind of hang up is, then I'll respect that. But I'd still rather take my shot with the pedigree.
Okay. That's fair. I get that.
Because James Pierre, is James Pierre going to be here for 2 more years anyway?
He'll be here next year. Right.
My view is if William Jackson doesn't work out this year, then there's going to say, well, we gave it a try. To the draft we go.
Sure. Oh, yeah, 100%. I think that's probably the way this thing plays out. But again, the thought is, do you go into that offseason saying, man, we just don't know. We like Pierre. He's progressing, but we don't know enough about him. Hasn't gotten to play enough consistently to try to see what he could be. And we're not really quite sure where this guy's going to be and how he slots into our defense. So again, people are going to yell at me for being hyper-focused on one point and one name. I don't hate this move. I can't be super mad at this move because the cost is essentially nothing. Washington just giving him away. That's all well and good. But that was my initial thought. I had said, I think 2 weeks ago, we had the conversation briefly. Do you have interest in William Jackson? I said, no, I really don't. And I still stand by that.
What's this do to the hierarchy of you mentioned Cam Sutton a little while ago too.
Right.
But,
because you want to bring him back, I would think.
I would think so too. And right now he's got an average yearly value of $4.5 million is his technical APY. And you just bring in a guy that's on the books next year for a base of over $9 million.
That's what I'm saying. What scenario in which is Jackson on this current contract a Steeler next year?
Well, you're not going to keep him at that and be able to sign Sutton for less than that. I'll tell you that. That's
my point. And Sutton to me is far more valuable than William Jackson. So how on earth does Jackson become a Steeler? Cam Sutton can't be a Steeler next year if Jackson is.
Well, also too, look at it this way though. Is there any guarantee right now that Cam Sutton is a Pittsburgh Steeler next year without maybe overpaying?
No, of course not. He's a free agent. He could say, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to go somewhere else or hit the market and get paid. As you said, corners get paid like crazy. So there is no guarantee of that. Sure. But
maybe they're looking at this as maybe a little bit of an insurance policy there, right?
It's an expensive insurance policy on a high mileage vehicle. Again, you can look at it that way. And I get that.
I think there's several different ways they might be looking at this because they got all these corners. But they don't have any corners.
Right. They do need to find a corner. They got to find that number one guy, and that's not going to be William Jackson. But of course,
and I'm not on board. I don't care whatever happens. I'm not on board with them going. I don't know. Maybe they get a pick early enough. Maybe they will. And I haven't scouted the corners this year.
Joey Porter Jr., future Steeler.
Yeah. I guess if you went that way, possibly there. But, and look, every position's hit and miss if you want to boil it down to first rounders, and regardless of position, It just, man, Steelers just have not had good success. I'd much rather see them spend some of these early round picks on the trenches like we talked the other day. But sure. I think it's better to look at this for what it is right now. And then once the last game of the season's played, then we assess it and say, man, he played really good, or he was just kind of average, or that guy's done. And then we start speculating on what will happen in March. And then you just hope that they make the right decision based on what the information that they garnered in the final 9 games, as far as future. Look, I mean, even if you just didn't do nothing says you got to extend him next March. But, like you said, 12, I mean, carrying a cap charge of $12-point-something million on one player, that's when there's other stuff that you got to address. Mm-hmm. If you don't get him signed, that in and of itself could become an issue.
Yeah, I mean, could he have an amazing season? He comes back at that salary? Sure. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but I just don't see that as likely, and I just don't see really the short-term benefit. Does this guy start against the Saints? Does he come in nickel? I'm curious. I mean, I'm just really curious to see how the cornerback rotation looks come week 10.
Man, I don't think you go out and trade for this guy and pay this guy
right
$3 million over the next 9 games for him to be a spot player. And you're doing it in the bye week here. He's got plenty of time to catch on with some stuff. And if he's healthy, I would think he's going to be starting opposite Sutton in that game.
Possibly. It's hard for me to read for sure, but if Levi Wallace is healthy and Kelly Witherspoon is healthy, and of course he is, then not starting are the 2 cornerbacks you paid this year. So somebody you just paid or acquired or spent some capital on, won't be starting for you come week 10.
Mm-hmm.
So, but again, Witherspoon has been, is he the biggest disappointment of any Steeler this year? I think he has to be. Kelly Witherspoon.
I mean, I know what you're asking. I'm trying to figure out the proper way to word it without people not getting a lot of hate mail out of this. But I said I was kind of cautious about it. Be cautious about him.
He's always been an inconsistent guy. Now, again, if Wallace is hurt, I mean, he's got the shoulder, didn't play. I don't know if he's out for the 6 more weeks, a month, something like that. I can understand this a bit more for depth and rotational type stuff, nickel packages. If Sutton's ever going to bump inside of that, really hasn't been happening much lately. So again, do I hate this move? No. Am I going to kill Omar Khan and rake them over the coals for this move? No. I understand the deal is pretty low risk on the Steelers end, but I just gave my thoughts on why I didn't love this deal. But again, the Claypool deal, A+. So even if I hate this William Jackson deal, and I don't hate it, but any question marks I have about the Jackson deal, easily forgiven and forgotten by, again, I think a home run trade to ship Claypool out for a 2nd-round pick.
Look, I'm not going to get up on my desk right now. I'm not physically able to do that anyway. But,
yeah, I will bet you. Please do it.
I'm not going to sit here and pound the table and say, oh, man, Alex, they got a steal here. Are you kidding me? No, what I think it is, I think it's a inexpensive dart throw, a rental, but an option to buy to get a good look at a pedigree player that they liked back in 2016, to see maybe if they can extend the mileage on him much in the same way that they did Joe Hayden.
Fair. I agree. I think that's a good way to sum it up, and we'll see how he looks and see how it all plays out. Hindsight's always the best way to judge these things.
Right.
All right, Dave, anything else from Claypool, William Jackson? Guys not traded. No Mitch Trubisky trade. No Mason Rudolph trade. Didn't expect
I thought Rudolph I thought for sure the moment that they drafted Chris Oladokun, I thought for sure by the time this trade deadline rolled around, I thought Mason Rudolph be out of the building.
Some habits die hard, and Pittsburgh very conservative at the quarterback position. I think they just wanted to hold on to all 3 quarterbacks to give themselves options and choices and protect themselves against injury. Those scars of 2019 still with this team, and who knows if the market was there. I think there was a market back in the summer. Was there one today? I think if anything, it's probably much cooler today than where it was back in August.
I tell you what, though, this smoke has slowly been and all the way back to when did Jeremy Fowler first write that thing back in the off season there about Claypool could be potentially. Now, I think he was looking at more at the time at Claypool being dealt before the season or during the off season there. But I mean, this has been simmering and of course, a lot of this is just Bleacher Report and, Joe Blow blogger just trying to add smoke. I don't know how much actual new information, but I mean, this thing has been simmering for a long time now that we've been talking about. Will Chase Claypool be dealt at the trade deadline? And it never went away, and they dealt him.
Well, the reports after the Fowler one were basically that Pittsburgh didn't have a desire to trade him, that they were going to keep him unless they got a really good offer. And maybe that was a little bit of, we'll leak some stuff, or we're going to put on a really good poker face and say, we don't want to trade this guy. We love this. We love Chase Claypool. You got to blow us away to make us part ways with him. And then maybe that drove up the market a little bit. But it sounds like, again, what drove the market was Green Bay offering a second. Chicago reportedly offered something other than a second round pick earlier in the day, didn't get an acceptance on that proposal, then upped their deal. It reminds me of the Martavis Bryant deal with the Raiders, where the Raiders kept basically offering more and more until eventually they got him acquired. And that was a big win, obviously, for Pittsburgh. So it felt like there really was a stronger market for Claypool than I thought. And heck, maybe it was because of all the receivers that got their deal signed this year, that the free agent market next year would be light. And perhaps that really incentivized teams to go after Claypool, who, of course, is under contract for cheap in 2023.
This is a weird question I just thought of, but I'm going to throw it out there just the same. All right. Would you sign Juju Smith-Schuster back for $5 million next offseason?
I would, but I don't think he's coming back to Pittsburgh. He's playing with Patrick Mahomes. I think he's averaging, 14 yards a catch out there? I don't think he wants to average 7.3 with Pittsburgh. But yeah, I would do that.
I mean, he's not under contract, right?
He's a free agent, yeah. But I think his price has probably gone up a little bit. I mean, he's averaging 14 and a half yards per catch. I think he's having a lot of fun in Kansas City, and if they offer him a decent deal, I'm going to guess he stays there. But I mean, yeah, if that deal would happen, if I could wave a magic wand and bring Juju back, yeah, I'm doing that.
How early, if because look, the jury's still out on Calvin Austin III right now. We don't know what he is or isn't, or we know what he is off of his college tape, but that's foot surgery later and hadn't played even in a preseason game yet right now. Do you address the wide receiver? I just hate to see them have to address the wide receiver position now in the draft with so many other holes and all. And if they do address it, I'm part of me right now hopes they don't do that before the third round.
Well, you have to do something, whether that's free agency or the draft. And I don't know exactly what that looks like, but you can't just go with the group you have now and bank it all on Calvin Austin and, whatever else is there. So I think you have to do something, what that looks like. I don't know. I think trenches have to be addressed first or in a significant way, whether that's a free agent signing or an early draft pick before necessarily receiver. But if you hypothetically go sign some linemen in free agency, then you can go maybe attack receiver in the draft. So there's a lot of ways this thing could go, but this team will have to do something more to add to that group.
All right. Okay.
All right. I think that kind of covers things well, but yeah, what a busy trade deadline day. I thought it'd be quiet. It's typically pretty, a lot more bark than bite and not a lot of trades, one or two, but today was, what'd you say, 12 deals in total today?
I forget what they had in total, but it was up there. That's for sure.
And so any other thoughts?
What about Roquan Smith going to the Ravens? How do you like that?
Don't want to see him twice a year, but no choice. I mean, rooting against him being re-signed this offseason, but I have a feeling he probably stays in Baltimore for a long time. So he's a up and down player to a degree, but really talented overall and makes Baltimore better.
I agree. What did Matt Canada say today?
Well, Matt Canada's still here, which is probably the biggest story,
that is a story. Yeah.
Of it all. I mean, for him to be here and to be speaking to the media, I don't get the sense they're firing Matt Canada. I think that might be pretty safe to say at this point.
I would say that's pretty safe too. And I think Mike Sullivan was asked and in so many words said that everybody's doing their same jobs right now. So
now could a role get changed or shifted? Potentially, we won't be able to see that from the outside unless or until a report comes out that says otherwise. In terms of what he said, I thought the comment whenever he was asked about Kenny Pickett's response Sunday postgame saying we don't study enough, that's one that didn't sit too well with me. The way that the comment that he made last week didn't sit well with you. And at one point, Canada said, quote, Kenny, he's speaking for himself. We got to play better. We can't make the same mistakes over and over. And I think that's what he was speaking to. I don't know, something about him saying Kenny's speaking for himself. I don't love that. It kind of feels a little throw him under the bus. I don't know. Am I reading that wrong?
I don't know. I'm still reading the transcript, and I know the video's out on that, and I have not listened to the context of it yet to see how he said it. But I can imagine how he said it. Kenny, speaking for himself. We have to play better. We've got to get things off the tape. I don't know.
It's just the Kenny speaking for himself part. I mean, is that true or not? Is he trying to say like, Kenny doesn't really know? Maybe I'm reading too much into it. I don't want to be too biased here, but I didn't love. Just say that we got to be better. Just go back to old standard Canada cliches.
We got to score. Did he say we got to score more points today?
Oh, I don't know about that. He did say we got to be better. I don't know if he said we got to score more points. So I'm going to go on a little dumb project here. I'm going to need your help on this. I'll talk about it after the podcast, but I'm going to go on a dumb little Canada cliche project for later this week. Anyway,
it's smaller because you have to score more points to catch up. Bingo!
Hey, mark that one up.
He was asked, do you have to have more success running the ball for this offense to work? Yes, we have to have more success doing everything for this offense to work. But yes, obviously our running game has to be more efficient. We have to stay on schedule. We had a little bit there last week. Yeah, a little bit. And we had to throw it a lot at the end, and we were down 2 scores right before the fumble. That was a really critical situation to go down and score there and make it a 1-score game, and everything is better. But we didn't do that, and all of a sudden you're down 2 or 3 scores, and your playbook gets smaller. How does it get smaller?
Oh, God.
7 minus 3 equals, are you down to 4 plays in? No.
Are there more plays or names on Colbert's draft index card? That'd be a fun game to play.
You're down 2 or 3 scores, and your playbook gets smaller because you have to score more points to catch up. So we got a score more points in there bingo for everybody today. Congratulations. Andy. And I didn't think Canada was I didn't think Canada was speaking this week. I thought it was going to be, the rest of the coaches. I thought they were going to give Canada the day off.
Right. So we'll see about him, but it sounds like he's going to stay. Yeah, just to go back to the Pickett thing, when he says Kenny's speaking for himself, back your quarterback there. Say, Pickett's right. We all got to be better. I mean, just at least affirm that, even if you don't have to outright endorse it. But whenever he says Kenny's speaking for himself, it sounds like he's disagreeing with Pickett on that. I think you got to back your quarterback because Pickett's doing that intentionally to try to lead this team, to call out his guys, to hold them more accountable. That was a very in the moment, but I think a calculated move by Kenny Pickett. And for Canada to say, well, Kenny's he's saying what he wants to say. It just feels like you're not really supporting your quarterback in that moment.
What you think about his response to Jaylen Warren? Has looked better on a week-to-week basis as a runner. Where have you seen the improvements for him, especially over the last couple of weeks? He says Jaylen is fired up guy that comes in and works really, really hard and then does the things that you want him to do. He's a football player. He's running good, protecting, catching the ball. From what I've seen since day one, he got here. He's doing pretty good. Let's see. Follow up. Why do you think he's having more success than Najee? He says some of it is situational. He's been in more third downs with some of those things, with the way the picture is, the box, and some of those things are situational, and also how many players are there to tackle you. He's been seeing more success with yards per carry. That's part of it. Obviously, Najee has spoken about it, and so I'm not speaking out of turn. Najee came out of camp and was getting going and getting himself back to full speed. So it's a combination of both, but they have been in different situations in the game. Okay, fine, good. Different situational there, but the kid's still breaking tackles and still getting. It's one thing if he's running through gaping holes, and he did on one of the draw plays there. But I mean, just ounce for ounce, pound for pound, since week one, this guy's looked better carrying the football. I don't care if it's third down, fourth down, whatever. I think he's looked better carrying the football.
There's certainly truth to the comment, and Eddie Faulkner, the running backs coach, said similar because Warren's gotten the occasional third down draw and some garbage time type stats when defenses are playing too high and they're allowing the run game. But I went through all the work to go through the charting that Tom Mead does and discount and take out all the quote unquote garbage time runs and third down third and long run plays and to see
you
what
studied for this. Shame on you.
I did. Yeah, there's a pop quiz after this. So
are you gonna gotcha me or no?
You're gonna sell me a car. I'm gonna give you a test, and we'll play that game. So I discounted a couple of runs that would maybe potentially skew those numbers. That situational football. And if you discount those, Warren has carried the ball 24 times for 107 yards. That's 4.5 yards per carry, still more than a full yard better than Najee Harris. So understand the point, agree with the principle. But if you do the math on it, even if you take out those situational football moments that may skew some of those stats, Warren has still been, on paper, a more productive and efficient running back than Najee Harris.
Eureka! Good job.
So there you go. Yeah. So. Now, again, how does that change? I thought Eddie Faulkner had an interesting comment that he said his goal is to play Warren 30% of the snaps, which is basically what the number has been in normal, game flow, excluding injuries and garbage time moments.
Maybe I don't know how much you got to increase his snaps, if any. Just you got to get the ball in his hands more, plain and simple.
Yeah, when you're a third down back, because that's his primary role right now, that doesn't lend itself to touching the ball a lot, and so that's
then get him in fully for like 2 series a game or something.
All right. Well, yeah, but then he's playing more than 30%, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. But if their goal is 30%, that's basically like pass down work. And so, but I'm with you. I think Harris is still a talented player. I don't want to give up on him. I know some people are ready to be done with Najee Harris, but I think schematically, stylistically, Jaylen Warren currently is a better fit. With the way he runs, with that very much north-south demeanor, that's a better fit for what the Steelers offense needs right now. And oh boy, Dave, do they need some sort of semblance of a run game.
I agree. I agree. What'd you, anything else to add about, anything else that I have not even looked at what Eddie said?
Not much overall, just talking about reminding Harris not to do too much overall. I think, kind of speaking to a little bit of that east-west style that he's, developed in this game and not always seeing things as quickly. And kind of talked about Harris sometimes getting down and being his own biggest critic and being too hard on himself. And so some interesting comments there. But again, him mentioning that, Faulkner saying, basically, we want Warren to play about 30% of the offensive snaps. That was probably the most interesting part.
Okay. All right.
And I think that was the only 2 coaches that spoke today. So I guess we'll get the defensive
I think
guys.
Sullivan did, but we just don't have it. We're not privy to some of that other. Maybe it'll come out over the bye week here. Hopefully it will.
So I imagine the defensive guys will speak tomorrow, and we'll hear about William Jackson if Terrell Austin speaks. So as you mentioned, now Austin was in Cincinnati for just a hot minute, right? I think like 6 games, and he got fired. So. But obviously he worked with him throughout the summer. I mean, he knows him well enough, so I'm not discounting that. But We'll get the thoughts there tomorrow. Anything else that anybody else said or did, or any other thoughts on the day?
What about Ben Roethlisberger wanting to go deep, first, second, third down, and just keep throwing deep?
Well, he's got to listen to the podcast because they've been throwing deep. Maybe not as often, not every single down, but Ben definitely had a little yinzer in that comment.
Yeah, I kind of get what he's saying. You want to back him up, and look, they go 3 and out anyway, usually early in the game. Why not come out regardless of coverage and shot that thing down the field 3 plays in a row? And like Ben said, you might get a pass interference call in one of those. You might end up with a 38-yard chunk play versus a pass interference. Maybe coming out the first 3 plays in a row and doing that would at least make them think about it a little bit more. Now, look, this team has been going down the field, right? I mean,
sure.
It's not – people say they need to throw down the field more. It's not that they're not throwing down the field more. It's just that they're not hitting throwing down the field.
Right. It's been inefficient in terms of their downfield attempts. I mean, I think Ben was also saying not always to go, with 40-yard bombs, but to go 10, 12 yards more often and hit those things. So I think Ben was basically saying just don't throw the check down and the short pass that gets 3 yards and
which he did last year.
Which, I was like, well, pot calls the kettle black. But anyway, so yeah, Ben's thoughts there. I just don't need a 2-hour episode of Ben talking. That's kind of
I put this yesterday on. I don't drink anymore, but I used to drink enough for you and me and my wife,
all the listeners, I think,
and a good portion of the listenership. So, tasting beers and all, and look, you people listen to this now, you were spoiled. All this stuff that you have that you can drink nowadays, all these flavored vodkas and gins that they have and all nowadays. I'd be dead now if I.
You were drinking what, like wine out of the toilet that you made, or out of the bathtub or something?
Yeah, gel wine, Budweiser, Busch. I mean, and see, back in my day, it used to be you'd buy the suitcases off the shelf cheaper than you could out of the cooler. So you'd save the extra, I don't remember what it was, $1.25 or whatnot, buy the beer right off the shelf. And you couldn't even afford a bag of ice, So you drive around all night, you get a police scanner, and you just drive around all night chasing scanner calls or whatnot.
Well, it's always good to get some beer and then start driving.
Yeah. But that's kind of what you did when you was poor, living in the South, and was a meathead like me. I'm going to throw some numbers here for you here. But what I was getting at there is, if you cut out all that talking about the and I understand that's a trendy thing. I don't fault them for making that part of the show and all like that. But if you cut that portion out of it, it was just Ben talking football and telling war stories or whatnot. I think it's entertaining, that part of it.
Sure, I mean they've had some good guests. Merrill Hodge was good, and all that. Brett Kiesel was okay. I thought it was a little. I don't know. I won't go down that rabbit hole, but anyway, it can be fun. It just. I get what Ben is saying.
Now, look, I guess we got to be full disclosure here. When that drops, the moment that podcast drops, and it drops right into the Twitter feed there, and we share it, it's not pleasant for a lot of words that usually get included after that.
It's just never at a good time because, yesterday was Halloween. I was trying to do trick-or-treating. Then, of course, the Ben, and I leave the candy for 5 seconds. I come back, the whole ball's gone. Like they took all the candy. So I'm just mad. I'm just very petty right now.
Now, full disclosure on top of the full disclosure, it's usually me with the dirty words. Alex is, I'm
just screaming. I'm just typing like,
Alex is a lot more better culture and a lot more polite when it comes to that stuff there. All right, Alex, per SIS, Sports Info Solutions, the Steelers have 37 pass attempts this season of 20 air yards or more. That is second most in the league behind the Denver Broncos at 43. The problem is they've completed just 12 of those.
Where does that rank? Not even as a percentage, but a number. What does that rank in terms of completions?
Let's see here if I can pull that for you.
I'm guessing probably middle of the pack because, they've just done it so much that I don't know if that'll be bottom of the league, but as a percentage, I'm sure.
What's that? 32.4%, right?
You're doing the math, I guess. I don't know.
I'm looking at the numbers here. Flipped over to rates here. 32.4% completion percentage is 32nd. No, I'm sorry, 22nd in the league.
Okay. What do they rank on pure completions? I'm just curious about even just the volume stat. How many does their 12 completions? What does that rank across the most amount of completions in football?
For the 20-yard air throws.
Yes.
They are tied with at six overall with the Saints and the Seahawks. Okay.
So, I guess in the volume, they're still getting it. They're not, 20th in completions and second in attempts, but the efficiency, as you said, 22nd is the most important number, and they're pretty poor there.
What about how about 10 to 15? You want to look at that?
Sure. You have the numbers.
Is that a money?
That's what Ben seemed to be referencing. He wants more passes there. Although, again, it seemed like Ben was trying to say, throw middle of the field 10, 15 yards, and Ben didn't do that the last 2 years of his career.
All right. They have 45. Now, this is the entire team. 45 attempts of air yards between 10 and 15 yards, and that ranks them 10th in the league.
Okay.
as
And
far
where
as
they
that
had
goes.
in conversions and
I mean,
efficiency.
45. Oh, wait, what did I say? 45 total. They've completed 22 of them.
Okay, so just under half. Where does that rank?
That
league-wide?
ranks them right there in the middle of the league, 16th overall as far as number of completions, not completion rate there.
Right, and some of that is when you're playing from behind. I mean, they are 8th overall in the league in pass attempts, so you would expect some of the volume numbers to be higher because I'm sure if you look at the Eagles, they might not rank as highly because they're not throwing the football a ton. They rank 29th in pass attempts.
Here's the thing, though. They're not getting any the ones they are completing, they're not getting any yards after the catch, right? In fact, will this show me that here?
Yeah, I'm sure their yak is poor. I mean, they're just across the board. Their team yak is among the lowest.
I mean, I don't have that sort. I'd have to go to individual player because they don't. I don't think they show here.
Because when they hit, it's outside the numbers. When they hit the big play, I mean, they can't fry with on the seam a little bit, but that aside, the Connor Hayward busted play. But as you talked about a week or two ago, when you look at the route breakdown of the most completions on X route, it's always it's out routes, it's comebacks, it's stuff that does not lend itself to a lot of yak opportunities.
You know what? While we're playing with this, and while I have it open here, let us look at route types. Comebacks. They have 11 completions on that. Curls, they have 42 completions on curls.
Is that first in football?
You know what? I can look that up here.
Yeah, I'm guessing. I'm going to guess that it's first by a good margin. If I had to guess,
this is a fun game. I love these games.
We get on some rabbit holes on these evening editions of the show.
You want completions, right?
Yes. Or are there 42 curls?
Okay, curls, completions. They are 4th in the league at 42 of those. Cardinals lead the league at 50. Saints are second with 44. So great. The Saints and the Steelers is gonna be
teams you want to be in the Cardinals, which offense has kind of been a mess.
Saints and the Steelers are gonna be that game's gonna be nothing but curl routes and and out routes, I think. Yeah. And what was the other one I want to see for slants here?
I know we looked at this last week. I think they were low. They weren't bottom in the league, but they are close.
29. They're tied for 26 in the league with 5 slant completions.
Who are the teams below them? I know you rattled this off.
The Raiders and the Bears. And now you're going to tell me you're going to run Chase Claypool on a slant? I'm going to be fired up mad if they do that and they have success at it. I'm just going to let you know right now. If Chase Claypool becomes the slot slant king for the final few games, I'm gonna be mad.
It's also worth noting the Raiders have had their bye week as well, and so they're a bit lower because they played one fewer game than Pittsburgh. So there's a bye week component to these numbers as well.
Okay. All right. Any other question while I got this open? Any other route? What about the goes? Go and flies. Let's see.
And pull it up there. I'd be curious after you're done with this on dig routes as well. How often do they throw the dig and complete it? I feel like they got to be really low on that number.
Let's see. On just go fly routes, they have completed 2 of them out of, and they lead the league. Or no, they don't. They have 11 attempts on the season, so they're 2 for 11 on throws to that route.
And that 2 is pretty low in the league? Because I know sometimes that definition can get really wonky and very specific in terms of what they consider a go or a fly route.
Right. I mean, there are teams that have 1 and 0, several of them.
Okay. So, yeah, that's probably a little weird. But 2 and 11 as a percentage, where does that rank league-wide? It's hard to judge.
The completion percentage on that would be 18.2%, which puts them 26th in the league on throws to the go fly. What was the other route?
A dig route. I don't know how they categorize if they have different things, but if they have a dig or an in route. Something deeper would be more my thought because they're on mesh so much that wouldn't be a dig, but if they kind of count that as an in-breaking route.
The Steelers have 9 completed digs.
What does that rank league-wide?
And 9 out of 10 too. 9 out of 10 complete attempts on there. Be interesting to see they don't put yardage on here. You know what I can finagle this real quick.
Well, what does that 9 rank across the league? Is that
on
higher?
the completions? Let's see, 9 completions are right in the middle of the league as far as that goes.
Should do it more often if they're that efficient at it.
Let me see if that 9 changes by putting it. What would you consider 12, 15 yards?
Yeah, 12 to 18 yards would kind of be the range in terms of 12 plus, I guess. But yeah.
All right, let's go 12 plus and see how that 9 changes for completions.
Right, because sometimes you get mesh sit, you get the actual mesh.
See, they've got 2 completions here on that distance, so these are a lot shorter.
Yeah, that changes the game a lot. And where does that 2 rank? That's got to be lower.
Yeah, that's tied for 28th overall.
Are the Eagles first in that? If I had to take a guess, a random guess, Eagles in that dig?
On completions, no, they're not. Not at that 12 to 100, 12 distance. It's the Browns got 10 of them. The Eagles actually have 5 completions on 10 attempts in there.
Now, to be fair, again, Eagles have not thrown the football a lot, so their numbers get skewed a bit on the volume. Plus, they've had a bye week. But anyway, all right. So I don't know. Are there any takeaways to take away from those numbers of any sort?
I think overall, I mean, the takeaway's always been they're not completing these deep passes down the field. They're throwing them mostly to the numbers and outside the numbers. Just their passing game in general, you look at their their yards after the catch compared to other teams around the NFL, and it's pitiful, so what they are hitting and completing pass wise is not presenting good opportunities for yards after the catch. Man, if this team had more yards after the catch, it would look a lot better. And on top of it, and I guess we talked about this the other day during the live stream and all like that. I just wanted to share this with with the listeners here as well too. I have it calculated that 78 of Kenny Pickett's 190 dropbacks this year have come with the Steelers trailing by 14 points or more. So 92 of his 190 dropbacks, which is obviously getting on close to 50% there, have come when they're trailing by 10 points. Now, that's not any kind of excuse for Kenny or whatnot. It's just when you're putting this kid in this situation of 14 points down and all these dropbacks and all, defenses can obviously play you a lot different. It's more predicated to a shorter underneath passing game because that's what they're willing to give up, right?
Right. Absolutely.
All right. So, be careful that's why we've continually said, and hey, there's not enough tape on him yet anyway, that we still got a long way to go to kind of figure out what Kenny is and what he isn't at this point. And this is something else that I shared with our live stream listeners that I'll share with the podcast listeners because everybody want to know about Ben Roethlisberger. As soon as I threw that out there, Ben Roethlisberger had 19 total drop back snaps during his entire rookie season when he was trailing by 14 or more points. And as you correctly guessed during the live stream, Alex, all 19 came in his debut against the Ravens there. And, that's why when people say, well, what is this compared to Ben Roethlisberger rookie season? Ben had a running game. Ben had a defense. Ben wasn't throwing the football more than what was the most he attempted. What was his average attempts a game?
The most he'd ever thrown in a regular season game that year was 28. I don't know the average, but it was probably around 20. 22.
Right. And, and once again, that's not an excuse me for Pickett. It's just, man, we got to stop trying to rubber stamp everything Kenny does and trying to match it up with Ben Roethlisberger because this is totally, heck, it's been 18 years ago, 19 years ago, since, and football's changed a little bit, as well too, over the years on top of it there. So I'm really interested to see, and nothing's going to get better. This isn't going to magically get extraordinary better over these last 9 games here, but it would be nice to see them be able to run the football a little bit better and at least give Kenny a chance to play in situations where, it's a 1-score game more,
Right. Well, that's my thought, because the evaluation, you can still have an evaluation, but it's muddier with those things hurting Pickett's chances to succeed. And will that get better this year? Will the run game really get better? Will his team be playing from behind most of the season? The schedule is, again, it looks a little bit more forgiving, so maybe there'll be closer games, but you kind of feel like the rest of this year will be a lot of what this offense has been doing, which is not much.
He's almost already 4 times as many dropbacks that Ben had during his rookie season of playing 14 points behind, and I mean, how defenses play when they're up 14, especially in the second half.
And that pass rush, you saw the way the Eagles pass rush just pinned their ears back, and Pickett's got to be just bruised up, just brutal today. I mean, some of those, even that hit he took scrambling on that 3rd down, when I was watching it live, I went, oh God, Pickett's going to die because he's going to go for this first down.
Got crushed,
he got just he was down for a second too, so he's feeling it, I'm sure. But to the point, I mean, I think Pickett has not played well enough, and just I have not gone through the all 22 as finally as I will by the time we talk Friday, but I don't think Pickett played very well, even understanding the difficult circumstances around him.
And he missed some throws, like we said the other day, right? And missed some hots and bailed on some pockets. And I really want to see, as I've said, I want to see they don't get down there in the red zone enough as it is, and he has not been great at all in the red zone this year. In fact, let me pull those stats up real quick here while we're.
I know you said his quarterback rating was 63 something in the red zone. I forget all the numbers. 2 touchdowns, a pick. Nothing that sounded very good.
Red zone stats, and this is from. What do you consider? Do you consider 20 being the red zone, or do you consider the 19 being the red zone?
Oh God. I consider the 20. I know it's inside the 20. I say the 20 is the start of the red zone.
StatHead has it as the 19 and in.
Okay. You can change that, but yeah.
I know, and I do, but okay. I've always considered it the 20 in.
Yeah, I always say the 20.
All right, so these are from the 1 to the 20-yard line, red zone. 9 of 21, which is 42.9% for 52 yards, 2 TDs, 1 interception, 3 sacks, and a rating of 62.2.
I know I always ask you, but where does that rank? Because I always like relativity with these numbers. I'm sure that does not rank well, but if you can pull up where that is across the board, because it's hard to know, like, if that's 10th in football, then that's better than what we think it is. I'm sure it's not 10th. I'm sure it's 29th or something, but I always like to be able to stack it against where the rest of the league is at.
I take out no plays. Do you?
I do. Yes. Yeah. Always. Who leaves no plays in?
I don't know. You would think that would be a default check, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah. There's so many. I know we're in like a very inside baseball episode here
today.
There are like 3 people who understand and care about what we're saying right now tonight, But yeah, StatHead takes you down a rabbit hole trying to finding the team. You have to go find the Steelers. Like, you have to go through 3 different columns just to find where they're at on some of those finders.
Man, the first world problems you and I have.
Yeah, right. Oh, Dave, we have it so bad. Everyone playing the very small violin.
I mean, how many minimum attempts do you want in this thing too? At least what Kenny has. What did I say that Kenny
100?
had?
Well, not 100. That'd be red zone.
I said Kenny had 21. How about 20 or more?
20 or more. There you go. Poetic. 20 for inside the 20.
Listeners, is this good listening to us do this?
This is not good. This is. I think I'd rather listen to Ben drink beer right now than this. But I want to know the numbers. We're on a quest to find out the red zone numbers.
You know what? It don't give you the chance in the play in the gameplay filter to do that in the play finder, does it?
It should have the totals above that, no? Where it has the list of all the numbers of each player. Oh, this is getting better. This is getting even better.
All right. I'm just going to sort it that. Hold on a minute here.
Because now we both want to know. We're both people that just want to know what the answer is. We don't even care about what the answer means.
All right, I'll rattle off some numbers for you with the 20 or more attempts inside the red zone here. Mahomes is 36 of 57, 63.2%. Tom Brady, 51.9%. Herbert, 51%. Cousins, 60%. What are you looking for? Rate, or are you looking?
I was looking for a rating. I want to say, I know that's not the say all end all, but I just want to know where Pickett, measures up overall.
Let's see. Aaron Rodgers, 127.2. Even Mitch Trubisky was just 4 of 5, 122.1. Let's see. Tannehill, 121.9. Let me go through some names of some. Mariota, 107.5. Joe Burrow, 107. Geno Smith, 102.1. Mahomes, 102 rating. Garoppolo, 101.3. Matt Ryan, 97.7 rating in the red zone. Tom Brady, 97.4.
Can I interrupt for 1 second? I pulled up the numbers because I wanted to see them. Of quarterbacks with even, and I don't have a whole ranking here, but quarterbacks with more than 10 red zone attempts, the only quarterback that has a worse passer rating in the red zone than Kenny Pickett is Trevor Lawrence. So Pickett is next to last in whatever set of the numbers that's going to be.
Well, did you just take the wheel from me or something? Are you?
I'm the cat. Look at me, Dave. I'm the captain now.
Are you stat-splaining?
Yeah, I just stat-splained on you. I'm sorry. I wanted to know. I wanted to see where that was at.
Where's the filter for that?
I just did. I didn't put on a filter. I just said 1 to the 20, and then just if you go to the top, it'll have all the player stats, offense, defense, and then the game log is below all of that.
Right.
So I just then sorted by quarterback rating, and again, I don't know how many qualifiers there are because Najee Harris is on here with his 1 attempt, but Pickett next to last. Only Lawrence is worse in the red zone.
Ooh. So I mean, I was right? I mean, yeah, that's an area you want to see him get better at here. You know what? Here, real quick, let's. I was going to look at his college red zone.
That's a good question. You have numbers on that, right?
Yeah, somewhere. What is it? QB. CB stats, isn't it? In that,
I don't know. You'll have to. I don't track that stuff.
Here we go. I got it.
Rely on. Okay,
but I've got it for just. I got it by year here. Situational stats. Opponent 20-1, 20. Okay, in his final year at Pitt, 2021, Pickett had 59.5 completion percentage, and their college rating they use different. Yeah, but it's 200.4. Which obviously he had 23 TDs and no interceptions.
He's got 2 touchdowns and 1 pick this year.
In the red zone.
Completion percentage is 13 points lower.
And he was 44 of 74. Let's look at 2020 real quick on Pickett inside the red zone.
Because 21 was the breakout year, so I imagine 20 a bit worse.
He had 7 TDs, 1 interception in 2020, and that was the obvious COVID year, right? Shortened year.
Right.
132.15 college quarterback rating in there.
Okay. Yeah,
so he was better. He obviously had some success at it in at the college level there. So, and that's what I've said in the live stream, and maybe even said on the last podcast there. One of the real things that I'm looking forward to in the final 9 games with him, obviously with all of his play in general, but I'd really like to see him start being more productive inside the red zone because they're not going to get down there that often. And Matt Canada says you got to score more points.
Right. And simply put, this offense is not scoring under Pickett, and that's not all his fault. There are a lot of layers to that. But again, the 3 games he's played in fully start to finish, they've scored, 3, 10, and 13 points. And that is not going to win you any games. So that has to change. And again, not all on Pickett, but he's the quarterback. He gets the credit, gets the blame, right or wrong. And that's what he and this team has to improve upon.
All right. How much time did we kill there tonight?
About 90 minutes. I think that covers it well. So we'll come back Friday and we'll talk more Eagles tape Friday, but because of the trade deadline and the craziness, I still can't get over that Claypool deal. So
yeah,
we'll table the all 22 for Friday.
All right. Why don't we hit a lot more? We'll have a lot more time right on Friday to hit some of these reader emails. We need to get this probably processed and out tonight, right?
I think so. So yeah, we'll do a big emo show on Friday because barring anything unforeseen, and who the heck knows what could happen, but it should be quieter.
All right. I enjoyed playing stat games with you today. Hopefully we didn't put a lot of you people to sleep and have you. Let us know what you think. TheTerriblePodcast@gmail.com. Did you enjoy today's show? The way we kind of dug down in some of them stats there. And you can follow me on Twitter @Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter @Alex_Kozora. Follow the show @Terrible Podcast. If you'd like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button. Also, if you'd like to donate, SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Had a lot of fun, Alex, and we'll get together and do this again on Friday. So until then, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.